Hello, my YouTubers. This is CT Woods coming to you again with another wonderful video trying to teach you the fundamentals of painting. In this video, it's going to be a time lapse of me painting this beautiful commission I did for a car enthusiast. And as this video is a 17-minute long time lapse, I'm going to explain exactly what I'm doing. So if you see here now, I'm getting set up to start painting. And what I've done is I've already done the background, and I've actually drawn the car and did most of a lot of the things that needed to be done to get the painting to this point that probably you would have wanted to see. But one of the things that I wanted to point out here is I'm laying down the darker colors, trying to start getting the car ready to receive the highlights, in which makes the car shine. And here you'll see I'm painting with oil on canvas, and you'll see that in the video I'm laying down the darker colors, trying to put in the darks to get ready to do the highlights. Many artists, they have a different approach when they're painting things, and me, I'm kind of different from a lot of artists. I like to block my painting in and get all the details drawn in, and I don't like to just put splashes of paint down. I'm more of a more controlled artist when I paint. I'll draw something with a pencil, and then I'll actually color it in like as if it's a coloring book piece. And then I'll go back and start adding the details and highlights. As you're looking at the video, you see where I took that same paint and I added titanium white to it to get that highlight. And basically, when you're painting a surface that's smooth and has like a mirror finish, it's hard to do it, but it's truly one of those things where you have to add white to the paint and put a lighter color in that area where you see the highlight. And it's, for me, it took a long time for me to get to the point to where I'm able to actually put highlights in, because I didn't trust the process. But you have to trust the process. It is truly one of those things that it comes with practice. As you can see to the right, I have my 13-inch iPad that I use as my reference drawing. My customer, they gave me a picture of the car that they actually was a collector's item for them, and in the picture it didn't show up the same way that it showed up on the painting because of the electronics reflecting off of the camera and the processing of the film. So it looks like the color is off, but when you've seen this in real life, the two pieces, the painting and the car, they were pretty much the same. If you look here, you'll see where I'm starting to add the titanium white. Now, what I recommend in a lot of cases, if it's not a direct white accent, I recommend you taking the titanium white and putting a dab of the color of the subject into the paint to knock down some of the brightness of the white, the chroma, and it will kind of dullen the brightness of the white titanium. You do that so that the color will have a kindred to the paint that you're putting the highlight on. Too many times, especially when you're painting a portrait, if you don't use the right tone of white, the right color that matches the actual skin tone, it'll make the person look like they're mummified, or either make them look kind of dead like, and it will look like powder put on the face. And if you notice, I'm using a liner brush to put those highlights in, and you see this brown pole that I'm using. That's a pole that I just got from a piece of furniture off of a construction site that I was working on, and when I saw it, I said this will make a good steady pole. And the pole, basically what I do is I lay it against the top of the canvas and hold it with my right hand at the bottom, and then I lay my left hand on it with a brush to be able to steady my hand. It's almost virtually impossible for you to do precise details without shaking in some instances. The more you concentrate, the more you shake. I don't know if it's a thing where you're getting older. I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for me, it's a little harder for me to steady my hand. Even though I have a pretty steady hand, it still takes a lot of effort to try to get your hand steady. Now, as you look at the painting, you can see that the paint is starting to look more like a shiny surface just by putting those highlights down. And for me in the beginning, it was hard for me to do that. But over time, I eventually got to the point to where I trust the process. Now here, what you'll see me doing is that I'll make the car look like it's setting on the surface that it's setting on, and that's by putting a dark underpainting under the car to give it a 3D effect, to make it look like it's setting down onto the painting, and there's casting a shadow of darkness under the car. Now I'm using ivory black mixed with a little gray to do that, and you don't want to use pure black because it will overdo and overshoot the shadow. You still want the substrate to pop through. Now, in oil paintings, you're going to have to do this in stages. A lot of this is not wet on wet. When you're doing these types of details, you can't do it all at one time. You have to do it in stages. So what I recommend you do is you give it a day or two to tighten up or to dry some to where it doesn't drag. Because if you try to do too much of it at one time, what will end up happening is that you end up just making mud and everything just turns brown and the colors don't pop and it don't look close to what it is you're trying to paint. So once again, just to recap what I just said, you got to be really careful with how much detail you try to do at one time. Now these wheels are the classic BBS rims that most car enthusiasts put on their cars. Now this is something that you have to do in stages. I started out with gray paint, and I painted the wheels a kind of a medium gray, and then I started adding the black inlets into where it made the spokes of the wheels. I let that dry, and then I came back, and now I'm using a mixture of titanium white and yellow ochre. That's what's going to make the gold appearance of the BBS wheels. Now the outer bands of the wheels are actually chrome, polished chrome, and the actual rim part, the forged part of the wheels, is a gold painted kind of gold finish. And then you have the center cap, which is where the BBS part is on. All of those pieces have to be painted individually. And then the tires, if you notice and look at the picture close, you can see the tires are not necessarily black. When you're painting, you have to look at everything from a literal perspective. Just because you know in your mind that something is black don't necessarily mean that you paint it black. Just because you know something is red doesn't mean that you just get red paint, paint something red. When you're trying to make something look real, you have to look at all the colors, and that means that you have to develop another eye that most normal people don't have. As an artist, you got to have that artist eye to be able to see the colors that are truly in the painting. And it took a very long time for me to be able to see that. And you have to stand back, look at the painting, and that's what I'm doing now, is that I'm actually out of frame, standing back, looking at the painting and trying to see what it is that I need to do to get that real effect. And a lot of times when you're painting, you have to get up, stand back off of it, take your eyes off the painting, go get something to drink, fix yourself a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, get your eyes off of the painting, then come back and look at it again. And that's when you can actually see certain details that you couldn't see at first, because a lot of times your eyes get trained to seeing what it wants to see, and when in essence it's not really there. And then when someone looks at your painting, they see that missing part that you didn't see because your eyes is subconsciously putting parts in the painting that you think are supposed to be there, and they're not there. So there is a process in painting, especially when you have someone that paint very loose, when they just put dabs and gobs of paint on the canvas, and it makes your mind finish the painting to make it look like what it's supposed to look like in your head. Now, when you're doing that as a painter, you have to be conscious of every move that you make in order to convey that to the viewer. But if you're tricking your own self as an artist and you're actually tricking yourself, and you're not putting the information on the canvas when you're painting, that's the difference between a great artist and a novice. So once again, we're just basically doing this time lapse of Nissan 300ZX, and I'm just very proud of this piece, and I think that it came out wonderful. The customer was just super excited because it just was so vibrant. The colors that we used to complement the color of the car, it just was an amazing piece, and I really enjoyed doing this piece. Yes, this is a time-lapse video. I must have went to the kitchen or something, I don't know, but as we're waiting on myself to come back, we may just edit this part out. And as we start painting some more, we're still working on the rims. As you can start to see that the rims are coming in, and now I'm working on the dashboard. Now the dashboard was a peculiar thing that I had to paint. One of the things was that the dashboard and the interior of the car, even though it was black, kind of a charcoal, really dark black, it was still reflecting the colors that was in the background. That's something else that you as an artist got to remember when you're painting things, is how light reflects off of things. And when you look at the dashboard in this final piece, the final image, you'll see that the dashboard has sort of like a greenish hue on the dashboard. Even though it was black, the reflection of the light and the colors coming through the windshield was actually reflecting a greenish hue off of the dash. And it didn't show that in the original image, but I knew that was how it needed to be done as an artist with experience of doing this. So what I did is I mixed some of the gray, charcoal gray paint with a dab of the green paint that was actually mixed up to paint the car, and that's what gave me that greenish hue on the dash, and that really added a really good custom touch to the piece. And now you can see I let that underpainting cast in the shadow dry a little bit. And that's also something that you have to do too, is even though oil takes a little while to dry, sometimes when you're putting paint on the canvas, you can give it 10 or 15 minutes. And if you allow some of the Gamsol that you use in the initial paint to evaporate, you can do a little bit more with the paint as far as adding additional layers to it. So you don't necessarily have to wait overnight to do all second and third coats. Sometimes you just can wait 15, 20 minutes and it'll tighten up, and the mediums, depending on what type you're using, can evaporate and the paint will tighten up and you'll be able to do more with it. And in this case, that's what I did with the underpainting under the car that's casting the dark shadow. I actually allowed it to dry up some, and it did. Now, as you look at the picture, I'm working on the steering wheel and then the windows, and I'm actually doing what you call a highlight. I'm taking titanium white mixed with some ivy black and making gray. And I always like to make my gray. I don't like to buy it already pre-mixed. I like to make my gray because I always try to make the grays kind of blend with the colors that I'm using it on. So like if in this case, I used some charcoal gray and I mixed a little green with it for the dash, you know. So and what I found is it's best to mix and make the grays that you use. They're very easy to make. You just take 50-50 of titanium white and ivy black, and you can make gray, and it works. And then depending on which shade of gray you want, you can add more titanium or add more ivy black, and that will darken it or either lighten it. So here you'll see me going over the green paint, and now I'm going over the J-Rock that's on the painting. This car enthusiast, his nickname.